Lots of people on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook asked,
what's all this yellow dust business about? So we talked a lot about yellow dust yesterday for our Instagram, our Facebook, our Twitter, and we also talked about it in Kpop Music Monday. We had a whole skit about the yellow dust because yellow dust is pretty serious business here.
Yep, unfortunately. That yellow dust fairy, though, very attractive.
She was hot.
I thought it was a he. The magazine!
Oh, yeah, no. So yesterday, the levels of yellow dust were really, really high. So we were wearing face masks for most of the day because it's actually unhealthy to be breathing when the yellow dust is so high.
Get what I'm doing?
Ha, 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 ha.
Yes, you might see a lot of people that are from Asia wearing these white face masks on, and people are like, why is everyone wearing these white face masks?
Why are there so many doctors out there?
I know. Usually it's for either keeping yourself from getting sick from other people, but when it comes to yellow dust season, it's usually to keep yourself from dying by breathing in millions of toxic fumes. It's like sucking the back of a car pipe. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Exhaust pipe?
Car pipe.
You know what I'm saying.
It's a car. Car has a pipe. It's a car pipe.
Yeah.
Technical term. So yellow dust, which is also known as Asian dust, is this giant storm of sand that comes from the Mongolian desert, supposedly, well, predominantly from there, and then it affects a lot of China, Korea, and Japan as well.
And it's not just sand. I think a lot of people think that like, oh, if it's coming from a desert, it's just kind of like sand being thrown at you.
No, it has a lot of like fine dust pollutants in there as well from like China's factories and Korea's cars and whatnot. In fact, there's a very famous video about it. You might have seen it back when you were a kid.
Nope, that was from The Mummy Returns.
Could have fooled me.
That's not what it looks like.
It doesn't get that bad at all.
Although it doesn't get that bad in Korea.
Right.
But I remember seeing pictures from people who live in China, and we were complaining yesterday, the yellow dust level, like the molecule particle level, which
it has the little U.
Yesterday was almost up to 300.
Anything above 100 is supposed to be unhealthy.
And 200 is like, and anything above 300 is considered to be toxic. So here we are complaining about the levels being like almost toxic in Korea, but I'm pretty sure China's levels went up to like 1,000.
Last year, supposedly in January, it got up to like 990 something in China. So we're here all complaining about being 300 and China's like, oh, you little babies. Boop, 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 boop. You call that a knife? This is a knife. And by knife, I mean yellow dust.
By yellow dust, I mean spoon. Actually, I remember when Susie said she was living in China for a bit, that when it was really bad yellow dust season, she could actually taste like the sand in her mouth.
And it was in her hair as well.
And remember, this is not just sand. Like people keep saying dust and sand, but you're talking about pollutants and chemicals that react so quickly on your body that within that day, you feel like a pile of...
An important thing about yellow dust also is that it's not a year-long thing. It's usually in the transitional period from winter to spring, so you don't have to worry about suffering this through monsoon season or whatnot in Korea. It's just this time of year that's really itchy and nasty.
So I don't think we've even explained what it really does to you. We've talked about what's inside of it and how it affects people in the air and stuff like that, but essentially what happens is if you're outside during yellow dust and you're there for like maybe an hour or so with no mask on, you start getting really itchy, burning eyes, so you think it's pollen and allergies. And I remember our first year in Korea, we had no idea why nobody was outside this one day.
Right.
And we went for a walk in the park with Spudgy, and the cars and the ground was kind of like coated in this yellowy brownie.
Like, oh look, it's nature releasing pollen. It's so beautiful here.
Yeah, and then that night, we were so sick. It feels like you're coming down with a cold. Like your throat gets scratchy, you start coughing up really gross.
We have friends here in Korea right now that have eye infections caused by yellow dust. You know, in fact, really funny story about yesterday because we follow very closely the yellow dust level so we can see when it's healthy to go outside or not because I do a lot of running. Yesterday, before I went on my run, it said that it was like a healthy enough level to go running. So I went running and I'm not a phenomenal runner, but I could run 5K very easily. But by the end of the run, I felt like I was going to die. But then when I went up looking at the results, it said that like 5 minutes before I finished my run, it like quadrupled in the amount of yellow dust. Probably like the worst we've experienced this year. And for the rest of the day, I felt really poopy.
Yeah, so that's how quickly it can come on. It's like everything's fine and then suddenly it like skyrockets up to high level. So it was a really, really terrible day to be outside and all of our friends felt it.
It's nasty.
And poor Spudgy.
I know, I'm worried about taking my dog outside. I can't put a mask on him. You think that dogs understand when you put masks on them?
No!
You can't reason with animals.
So before we came to Korea, we learned a lot of stuff about like, there's North Korea nearby. We're like, there's monsoon season, or there's 4 seasons of Korea. But nobody actually talked to us about yellow dust or anything like that. And when we meet people on the street that are visiting Korea, and we say like, oh, you guys should put masks on, it's really bad for yellow dust. They're like, what's yellow dust? What are you talking about? Even on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, a lot of people didn't know what we were talking about. So I don't feel like there's a heavy enough emphasis put on how dangerous this is for you.
Supposedly in the news now in Korea, this year is focusing a lot more on giving reports that the yellow yellow dust is high, they tell you that it's high, but they're not like stay home because it's dangerous. They're just like, oh, yellow dust is high, be careful.
Yeah, but they're not going to tell you to stay home because during the monsoon when we were living in Busan, trees are all over the street, power wires like zzz, and my students have to go to school. Okay,
hold on, let me just like Tarzan over this tree and get to class.
So if you're going to come to Korea, we recommend you follow. We have a yellow bot robot that we follow.
Yellow dust robot. Follow that on Twitter. I'll let you know what's a good day, what's a bad day.
And don't be embarrassed about wearing a face mask. This is your health. Don't you think you can live forever, Mr. Missy? Mr. Pants, you put on that mask.
The things that let you get away with on camera sometimes. Anyhow, we have some more interesting sites and information that we want to share on our blog post. So make sure you click on the link here so we can carry on the conversation a little bit more.
So here's my question for you guys. I'm curious if you experience anything like this from your country as well. Do you get dust storms? Do you get locust storms? Do you get ravenous bees that come through and you scream the bees?
Supposedly, if the yellow dust is really bad, it could actually affect some parts of the US. It actually blows over. So I'm not sure if you've seen that or not.
So for last week's TLDR, we talked about how things have changed, things we've noticed in the past 5 years in Korea. And Ashley Winter left a comment about goat cheese and how she missed it. But she said she buys goat milk and she makes her own cheese.
Right.
Funny, you should say that.
Yes.
Are you dying of choking from yellow
I'm
dust? I can hear you, Duckers.
Sorry.
It's okay, big guy. I made Simon goat cheese on the weekend, but I did not see goat milk at my local E-Mart until only recently.
Right.
Yeah, and so then I made my own goat milk, I made my own goat. I bought a goat.
Milk the goat, Lexa.
Okay, I made goat cheese, but what was your saying about it, Simon?
It didn't really taste like goat cheese. It just tasted like cream that you put on something.
I didn't have the renant or renant or there's some word. I just used lemon juice or apple cider vinegar.
Also, OC Sleazy, who has an amazing username, told us that we should open up our own cheese boutique here in Korea, somewhere like Hongdae or Itaewon and Gangnam or whatnot, so that a lot of foreigners can get their cheese fix, and that Eatyourkimchi has a lot of possibilities to expand and to make a lot more money. And I'm like, we can make cheese.
And by expand, you mean expand my hips, because I would just eat all the cheese.
I don't even know what our business model is there, apart from like make cheese, eat some of it, give some of it away,
maybe sell it. Do you think we get sick of cheese? I didn't get sick of it when we were in Europe.
Nobody can get sick of cheese.
What about people who are lactose intolerant and hate cheese?
They get sick from cheese.
Oh. So deep, man.